All right, so we're gonna start the black section here. We've got Dirge Bat, 4 mana, mutate for 6. Flash, flash flying for 3/3 for 4 already seems kind of good. Whenever this creature mutates, destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. So mutate for 6. So this seems like one of those creatures where you'd almost like flash it in as a 3/3 and then mutate it with a cheaper effect to blow something up, or maybe mutate it with a flash creature or something. How's it going, AF? How are you doing, man? I've been pretty well. Less time on commons, yeah, maybe that's true. But yeah, I would say for draft, this is definitely a bomb. This is definitely competitive for sure. Whether you're using this to mutate onto something or whether you're flashing this in as a mutate, like flashing it as a flyer and then mutating with something else to proc it to destroy something on your own turn after you untap, could be very good. I don't think you really like pay the mutate cost onto something as much as you just use this guy as a base. He's definitely good. I'd say in standard he's probably going to see play somewhere. Say he's like niche / competitive, if not just competitive. But maybe I'm overvaluing the removal, because we even have removal right now like Eat to Extinction that doesn't see a lot of play, you know. So that's where I'd rate him. I think Extinction Event, 4 mana. Choose odd or even. So again, with this, they're bringing this back. They had a white card with this as well. Exile each creature with a converted mana cost of the chosen value. Ooh, so this kind of wrecks. This kind of wrecks like some weenie decks. 0 is even, by the way. So I'd say in draft, this is definitely removal. It's kind of niche in draft though, like because this could blow out the opponent, but it could also blow you out because it exiles everything on each side of the field. So like you could, it's definitely niche. It's probably good, but it's hard to assign it value. And in constructed, it's niche. We probably will see someone break it. Could be very interesting. I like it. Hunted Nightmare, 3 mana, 4/5 for 3 menace. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent puts a death touch counter on a creature they control. That's really interesting. This is super interesting. I would say that this is because it's menace, so they would have to double block you in order to kill this anyway. That's interesting. So for constructed, a 4/5 for 3 mana is pretty insane. And if you can keep removing what they have, or remove the death touch creature, or prevent combat damage to this, like there's a million ways to Sunday that you can solve the problem. Yeah, it's super value. How you doing, Raincloud, by the way? Yeah, I think this is good. It's definitely niche though. I don't know if it's good, straight up. I would say for limited, it could be pretty crazy. Like it's a card where if it goes unchecked, it just wins the game, like in a couple turns. So if you're able to set it up, I'd say niche in both categories, because it doesn't like strike me as like, I don't see the synergy so far in draft, and maybe we'll see it once we go all the way down. But yeah, so niche. I'm trying to move a little bit faster because the other sections took quite a bit of time. So Mythos of Nethroi, 3 mana, destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature, or if white black, so like, or white green was spent to cast the spell. Destroy target non-land permanent if it's a creature, or if if green white is spent. So if green and white is spent, you can destroy anything. If not, you get to destroy a creature. So pretty interesting. My favorite Mythos so far is still the white one, but this is pretty interesting. I'd say this is just great in draft. It's 3 mana, destroy a creature. It's competitive. It's probably the best removal we've seen of the set so far, aside from maybe the white one, the swallow whatever, the Path to Exile effect. Aside from that, this is the best removal that I've seen from the set. So definitely good. And in standard, I could even see it being played. Like if you're running these colors, like maybe there'll be some brews around it, but even so, like just being able to blow up something for 3 is pretty cool. So niche for standard, one of the most competitive cards I've seen so far for draft. Bastion of Remembrance, 3 mana. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human creature token. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So niche for standard, there are some aristocrat lists. I was trying to run those two words together as one, is what was happening there. Would like to see something like this, but it seems a little too expensive for standard. Like, they're just going to wipe your board or do something else, blow up your enchantment, interact with you in some way that you don't like before you can really set this up. Yeah, it's an enchantment Ira Ra. So, you know, it can be kind of okay, but I don't think you really run it too much. And in draft, I don't know if it's really good enough either. It could be okay if you got enough synergy, but niche at best, trash most likely. So like trash pushing into niche, I think, for both. Call of the Death Dweller, 3 mana. Return up to 2 creature cards with total converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a Death Touch counter on either of them, then put a Menace counter on either of them. Ooh, so this is like a mini, like, menagerie almost. Gruesome Menagerie. Like a mini value type engine type deal. So I'd say for draft, it's a little niche. Probably competitive though, if you can set it up right. Like if you're pretty low to the ground, you could get some really nasty effects back up, provide some blockers with Death Touch, etc. Seems kind of cool. In standard, I'm not so sure. Like, it could give you some recursion that you want, but most of the recursion you want, like reanimator lists typically want like higher end stuff to reanimate, and this can't grab higher end. So like maybe in some aristocrat lists, like maybe Cat Oven or something else, but most of the time you're already bringing those back with like escape mechanics, so I'm not sure if it really fits the bill. Chittering Harvester, 6 mana. Whenever this creature mutates, each opponent sacrifices a creature. So mutate for 5, a little expensive, 4/6 for 6 mana. This doesn't seem terrible and limited. It seems like a very mediocre card. Could get out of hand if it goes unchecked, but pretty easy to contain since it comes down on like turn 6 maybe. If you haven't spent all of your removal, maybe you have a counter spell to deal with it, etc. So niche slash maybe competitive, like maybe mediocre. I'd say it's right in between niche and competitive. And then in standard, I don't see it seeing much play though. It's just too expensive. Duskfane Mentor, 3 mana. When it enters the battlefield, put a lifelink counter on target non-human you control. 2, so we have one of these for each color, it seems like so far. Like the blue one had like flying or something, the white one had something else, etc. Like it seems like there's one for each color for the most part. I think it's interesting. I think that it's niche probably for both formats just because it takes a lot of synergy. You have to have another non-human in play, and then you have to be able to have time to build this up. It's like, it's just okay. Easy Prey, 2 mana. Destroy target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less, cycling. Amazing in draft. This is another really good removal card. I'd say it's probably second or third to the Swallow and this other one that we have, the Mythos. Considering that's an uncommon, it's really, really good for that purpose. Like, just that you can you probably see it. I like the artwork too. This is pretty funny. Good. So cycling for 2, if it's just late game and your opponent just does big stuff, always cycle it, try to get your other removal. Other than that, it's just really, really good. It's just great. In standard, I'm not sure if we'll see a lot of it. Maybe if aggro is super popular, but typically speaking, you just want to kill stuff. Like Disfigure is typically better because it's 1 mana, right? So you have to compare it to that. And you're only bringing it in against aggro, right? This could be an okay main board card maybe if aggro is really, really popular, but you also want to be able to cycle versus control. It whiffs on Uro though, so that's something to consider for standard. Grim Dancer, 3. Enters the battlefield with your choice of 2 different counters on it from among Menace, Death Touch, and Lifelink for 3 mana. Definitely good in draft if you're mostly black and you're just splashing another color. I'd say in limited it's competitive for sure. It's just crazy. It's nice. In standard, it's probably a little too fair. Like it's a Death Touch dude, bro, man. Like for example, Leyline Prowler is a 2/3 for 3 mana that taps for mana and has Death Touch and Lifelink, and he doesn't see much play. So like, you know, do what you will with that. This is a little different though. This could be more aggressive rather than being an option to produce mana. Heartless Act 2. Destroy target creature with no counters on it. Remove up to 3 counters from target creature. Oh, nice. So this is good removal. So wow, so much removal in this set for black, man. And see black being really popular in draft. So competitive for draft for sure. It's just destroy something, and if they don't put a counter on it in response, you blow them out. Or if they go to put counters on, it's good. So 2 mana, really good for draft. I'm not sure about standard though. It seems like we just have better removal spells already for the most part. So could be okay, could be decent, could be good sideboard maybe. But so standard niche, draft great, just competitive. Insatiable, Hemophage, 4 mana, 3 to mutate, Death Touch, 3/3 for 4. Whenever this creature mutates, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of times this creature has mutated. So pretty decent. This could be a really good finisher for draft. So usually I delve into draft first. It's just a habit because I feel like it helps me establish a basis and then work into standard from that after I've got my thoughts kind of going already, the cogs moving. So 4 mana for 3/3 Death Touch is already pretty good for draft. Like, it's not terrible. It can trade with anything, right? As long as it's allowed to. And then you've got the upside of being able to cast it for 3 mana. If this body is bigger for 3 mana, then you can have this be on top and then maybe get like flying or something else from down bottom if you paid 2 for a flyer. So just really, really good for draft. In standard, it might be a little too fair. Just a little too slow. The mutate could definitely help if you're just going to finish your opponent. Maybe it could fit into like mono black devotion, like, I don't know, in a weird way, but you already just want to cast like a gray merchant because of that. Like, I don't know, it's just a little weird. We'll have to see how it plays out for standard. It's definitely niche though for me in standard, and competitive for limited. Unbreakable Bond, 5 mana. Return target creature card from your battlefield with a lifelink counter on it. So this is sort of like the one that we have right now that gives haste, so could be a replacement for some of these reanimator decks. Doesn't seem as good without haste though, you know? So unlimited, probably not. 5 is pretty steep unless you have some bombs or you're like self-milling somehow, which I didn't see any support for it in blue, so unlikely. Just seems niche in both categories, I would say. 8 mana, this is steep. Cycling for 3. Death Touch 8/8 though. It's a bomb. It's pretty big. When you cycle Void Beckoner, put a death counter or Death Touch counter on target creature you control. So in limited, I could see this being pretty competitive just because it gives you something big to cast late game anyway. And if your opponent somehow has a bigger creature than an 8/8 and it doesn't have flying, you can just kill it, which is nice. It's an upside. And then if anything, you can cycle it to kill the big creature early game for tempo. So it's good anyway for limited. I would say that this is competitive for limited, and for standard it's just too slow. I think there's just no way that this card matters in standard for the most part. Zagoth Mamba, 1 mana, Nightmare Snake. When this creature mutates, target creature and opponent control gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So interesting. Probably for limited it's very niche because this forces you to use this as a basis, like a base for your mutate, and like you draw this late game and you're really sad, right? So in limited I could see it being kind of niche, kind of bad almost, and in standard kind of the same way. Like, unless you could really set it up with 4 copies and you really wanted to go all in on it, for 1 your opponent has to be on creatures, and then for 2 this like has to not die to a Bone Crusher before it gets to untap. So I'd say like trash for standard almost, trash/niche maybe, but probably not. And then for limited, sort of the same. Blitz Speech, 6 mana, flash. When it enters the battlefield, target creature and opponent controls gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Remove all counters from that creature. Ooh, okay. So this is a flash without mutate, 6 mana. I mean, in draft, I could see it being a little bit better than it is in standard. In standard, it's just trash. I don't see it seeing any play. In draft, I could see it being very niche. If you just need some removal and you've just been like, you're not seeing any of your uncommon removals for black or white or anything, and you just have to take it because of removal, I can see that. Other than that, I don't see it seeing any play. Blood Curdle, 4 mana. Destroy target creature, put a menace counter on a creature you control. God Tier Unlimited, top 5 commons. This one? You think this one's good? Top 5, really? Did we ever do any draft in stream? We do drafts once in a while. No Blood Curdle. Oh yeah, Blood Curdle is definitely crazy. I didn't even get to do my rating, dude. You stole my thunder. But yeah, I would say that this is crazy in draft. It's definitely crazy. Even in standard, like standard, it seems a little too slow. Like, we have better 4 mana removal spells, like Eat to Extinction can deal with a planeswalker or a creature. And it's not as relevant, but for limited, it's definitely a bomb. It's definitely crazy. It's not a bomb because it's not really what it is. You can turn something into a bomb. But yeah, definitely competitive for draft. Not very good for standard. Boot Nipper, 2 mana. It enters the battlefield with your choice of Death Touch or a lifelink counter on it. I mean, for 2 mana, this seems really good for limited. Like being able to trade with anything or get like if you need to catch up, if you took some damage or something and it's late game, you somehow board wiped or traded well, getting the lifelink is kind of okay. You're 9 times out of 10 just going to do Death Touch. Definitely good for limited though. Standard, I think there are better 2 drops, so probably not. The power creep in standard is so crazy. Bush Meat Poacher, 4 mana. Tap 1, sacrifice another creature. You gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Draw a card for 4 mana. I would say niche at best in standard. Not standard. Niche at best in limited. It seems like a lot for 4 mana. Is it really that crazy in standard or in limited? Like I guess you can just start sacking stuff and drawing cards like little dudes. Fairly playable and limited. Yeah, I was saying like because you have to sacrifice something kind of like if you're sacrificing a 2/2, it's like I guess it could block and then you could sacrifice, but it seems really slow. I would say that it's like it's mediocre almost. Like I don't know. I mean, it's a common, so like you can build around it. It's easy to pick up synergy cards. In standard, it's way too slow. You just run Priest of the Forgotten, right? Or Forgotten Priestess. Really into it. If you're really into aggro, this is an okay pick. One. Yeah. Yeah, like if you have a lot to pitch, like if you don't have high value cards, it can be okay. I'd say that it's niche at best though. In standard, it's probably not going to see play though. Tavern Whisperer, 5 mana. Mutate for 4. Menace. Whenever this creature mutates, each opponent discards a card. Well, this is fairly okay. Like I'd say this is pretty okay for a body. Like if you're just looking for a mid-range card for limited, like if you're just looking for something in the middle of the curve, it's okay. Because for 4 mana, you get to get a 4/4 body down on like you could trade in like a 1/6 or something or a 2/2 or whatever on top of taking its abilities. And then the menace is also awesome. It's just cool because then it gets the menace keyword whether you put it on top or bottom as well. So just overall pretty decent, mediocre. Standard probably not so much. And thanks for the follow, man. I appreciate it. These aren't my normal streaming times, by the way. This is for a YouTube video and me not being able to sleep on time. So, Corpse Churn, 2 mana. Put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then you may return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Ooh, this is an instant. This is super interesting. I would say that it's niche for standard. You could see some like really nice dredge cards. Like you see a lot of people already self-dredging with like the enchantments like Tyrant or whatever it's called. Tiramat, something like that. I'll get it eventually. So this could help those decks a little bit on top of just being able to get back like, a Woe Strider or something before they escape it. If it's not quite at that point. And in limited, it could be okay. Like I would say that it's niche. It's definitely cool. I like it a lot. But I would say that it's niche in both categories at best. A Dark Bargain, one of my favorite cards. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Dark Bargain deals 2 damage to you. So for limited, this is really nice card advantage. Like for 4 mana, it's instant. You can hold up, open a kill spell. You can do this, you can do that. Just kind of nice. And then in standard, I'd say that it's niche. Like usually you can find better card advantage with the vast amount of cards we have in standard. So niche for standard / trash. And then very interesting for draft, very niche. Dead weight for 1. We already know this one. This one's great in draft. Just removal, it's common removal. It doesn't always remove what you need, but sometimes things are a little bit bigger, especially with mutate, it could lose value. But early game, it could be a very keepable card. Say in limited, it's definitely competitive / niche, depending on how the draft evolves into being like maybe bigger creatures. It's hyper aggro, etc. Just depends on how it all goes. And then in standard, like you see it used sometimes, but they're usually like people prefer Disfigure because it's instant speed. Durable Coil Bug. 2 mana. 5. Return it from your graveyard to your hand. Wow, this guy's really crazy for limited, isn't he? Like imagine drafting this guy, Doyle Curlblood, and this. Like this is pretty pog, dude. It's just the slowest combo in the history of Magic the Gathering almost, but that's what that sometimes drafts break down to that, man. Sometimes you're at a stalemate, no one can swing in, and that is going to win you the game, let me tell you what. So very like kind of niche / competitive. Like this seems like a good card by itself anyway, and then if you see this later in the pack, it's crazy. It's just good. So you run the risk of milling yourself out if you don't have a good enough bomb or mutate effect late game. But yeah, in standard, I'm not so sure. We already have Gutter Bones, so probably not. But in draft, I could see it being way better. So draft, competitive, I would say Coil Bug is, especially with certain synergies. And standard, it's just a trash can. It's a trash bug. Gloom Pangolian, 3 mana, 1/5. Super trash. This could be an okay mutate base, but even then it's just kind of garbo. Like you don't really want that. This is just bad. Both for and for standard, it's just fucking walking trash can. Lurking Deadeye, 4 mana, flash. When it enters the battlefield, destroy target creature that was dealt damage this turn. So this is pretty interesting because this could be an interesting mutilate base. I keep saying mutilate instead of mutate. I'm trying to correct that, trust me. It's just really great because you can flash this in after you've blocked something, after you've chumped, kill it, and then you can use this to mutate onto something else. So it's just nice. It's just really, really good. This is great. This is a really competitive card. It's also a common removal for black for draft. It's just awesome. Dude, I'm actually going to draft a lot of the set, I think. Like, looking at the set, I kind of like the flavor and everything for it. I might jump into it earlier than later. Maybe I'll draft instead of playing standard for a while. I'm not sure, before I spend resources. Anyway, just a great card. Standard, I'm not so sure. 4 mana for conditional removal is kind of bad. I probably wouldn't rate it above trash tier / niche for standard. Memory Leak, 3 mana. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from that player's graveyard or hand and exile it, cycling for 1. So in limited, going 1 for 1 isn't always the best, especially where you have to take the turn off for sorcery speed for 3. Late game, it could end up helping you if you think your opponent has a counter spell, but I don't know. For limited, I would say it's not so great value. Like, I don't know. It just depends on how good hand hate is. Usually it's meh. You like the Memory Leak artwork or this artwork? I think you're talking about the Memory Leak. I like it too. But yeah, I would say in limited, it's niche. In standard, we have Agonizing Remorse. So it's garbage, right? Even with cycling attached to it. You'd rather just exile an Uro and cast it. The only upside it has is not it's not a good compromise to its mana cost, like 2 for Agonizing, 3 for this. So Mutual Destruction, 1 mana. This spell has flash as long as you control a permanent with flash. As an additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice a creature, destroy target creature. So this seems okay. Like, I would say that this is a little, like, it's just good removal, right? Like, it's okay removal. You just sacrifice your worst creature to destroy their best creature, and it can be good. Like, as long as your worst creature is not as good as their best creature, then you're fine. And in that case, you're in a really good spot, and you can hold this for removal for a bit, if that's the case. So in limited, I would say this is pretty competitive. It's just removal, it's decent. And then in standard, probably not great, because we have better removal for the most part. It could find its way in some niche decks, like, you know, if you have a lot of flash or whatever, like Sultai Flash becomes the thing, maybe. But even then, it's like, you don't want to be blowing up your own creatures, you know? Unless you really have to plow through, like, a Cavalier or something. Night Squad Commando. When it enters the battlefield, if you attack this turn, create a 1/1 white human token soldier. So 3 mana for 2/3. Seems okay. It's mediocre at best. I don't see it being played too much in standard. Probably like trash tier standard. And it could fill out your deck in black if you just need creatures, but I wouldn't really count for it more than that. Seems okay. Like conditional puts 2 bodies on the table. Total of what? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stats. Okay. Serrated Scorpion, 1 mana. When it dies, it deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. 1/2. I mean, this is a cool mutate base. And if you're looking for cards to mutate on, like if you've got a lot of 4 mutates, this could be okay. Other than that, I wouldn't really see it being ran in a lot of decks, both standard or limited. Limited, it's got more of a chance just for a mutate base. Other than that, it's kind of meh. It's kind of cute. I don't see it being too popular in standard. Suffocating Fumes, 3 mana. Creatures your opponent control get -1/-1 cycling for 2. You can see this in some Rakdos sack builds. Maybe dang. I don't know. The deck is just so tight already, isn't it, though? Like think about what's in Rakdos sack and what you would have to take out for this and what this does over something else, you know? Like, it's already a pretty flushed out list. I don't know if that list has room for it. So this seems okay. It's instant speed, which is nice. So I'd say in limited, this could be okay. It's kind of niche if you just need something to cycle, if you need a combat trick or something. You'd rather just draft removal, though, is the thing. So I'd say this is like mediocre either way. Like if you're just looking to fill out your deck and your colors, if you're trying to force mono black and you just need more cards, or if you're just looking for like just something to sway the tide of the battle in your favor, like the field, could be okay. Standard, I don't see it being too great though. Unexpected Fangs, 2 mana. Put a 1/1 counter and a lifelink counter on target creature. Yeah, seems okay. If it was Death Touch, it would be a little bit better, I think. I would say, I mean, lifelink can really sway the tide in like draft sometimes, but it seems a little niche because it's not putting you ahead enough, I don't think. Like a 1/1 counter for 2 mana isn't too impressive. So I don't know. I'd say like probably pretty bad in both limited and standard. For the most part, trash mostly. Unlikely aid, 2 mana. Target creature gets +2/+0 and gains indestructible until end of turn, 2 mana. Not terrible. It's a combat trick. It's okay. I'd say it's a little niche in black because there's so much good removal, so many good removal spells in black, that it feels kind of bad picking up this. I don't know, Rocket Man. I don't know what it's doing in black. Indestructible usually isn't black's thing. We've already got a white card too with indestructibles, so. But yeah, anyways, I think that it's kind of bad. Like, it's niche if you really, really need it, and black if you didn't draft enough removal. But 2 damage isn't enough to like punch through for lethal most of the time. Like, it can, like anything else, like a 1/1 counter can push through lethal, but I just don't think it's that great. Whisper Squad, 1 mana. 2, search your library for a card named Whisper Squad, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. I definitely niche. Like if you get enough of these guys, they could make mutate bases, but they don't really do enough. They are humans, so maybe you could do something funny with like Whisper Squads and the enchantment that gives all humans to 1/1s and stuff, but like the stars and moons have to align. It's just crazy. Like it's almost impossible. So I would say that it's kind of niche for sure. So, and that'll cover the black for the review so far. So something that was just mentioned to me too before we move on to red here is that you can't mutate humans. They have to be non-humans. So like when I was saying stuff like this could be a good mutate base, I was lying. I didn't know I was lying though. Same thing with Whisper Squad. So something to keep in mind going forward. I'm going to try to remember. Just a lot of new mechanics and stuff for me to keep up with. So